this is Manny Hishmeh with LARP.com, and today we are interviewing Jason Goldsmith.
Hey there.
Hey Jason, how are you doing today?
Good.
So thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me. LARP.com is conducting this interview to get the true story of LARPers. So if it's okay, I'll go ahead and start.
Go for it.
All right, Jason. So did you ever have any initial thoughts about what LARP meant before attending your first event? And if so, what was it?
Yeah, so I had been exposed to LARP a little bit in high school through Amped Guard, which was, I think, a boffer type LARP. I started in pen and paper, and then my friend happened to do Amped Guard, and so I kind of tried playing a little with just him, nothing at an event, and decided it was not realistic enough for my martial arts sensibility, since I do a lot of martial arts, and so I kind of avoided LARP since then because I'd always viewed it as the heavy boffer type, where you always focus, where you just beat on each other with very bad martial arts, so to speak. And so I kind of avoided it because of that for a long time, even though I've been a fan of Vampire the Masquerade and had interest in maybe even doing LARPing for that. There never was an opportunity to do it, really. And so I kind of always thought it was, well, it's kind of interesting. It's the next level of pen and paper in a way, but with the focus on buffering, didn't seem really my cup of tea. And then with Vampire, just never either finding a group or kind of the right crowd. And so I just stuck with pen and paper until I saw a Facebook ad for Dragon Thrones and looked at it and showed it to my wife, who also got into it, and was like, well, this seems awesome. That combines a bunch of stuff, and there's not a big boffer component, which, I liked the boffer, but I didn't like the lack of realism of it. So I'm like, well, this could be a good mix. And then at that point, we've been into Ren fairs for a while and had a bunch of garb from that. I'm like, hey, we have an excuse to wear our garb. So that's what we went for. And so then we started trying it out.
So for those who don't know what Amp Guard is, can you explain a little bit about that?
Oh, I'm not super qualified for it, but it's because I did this, 20 years ago for a couple of days with my friend. It's a type of LARP that's heavy on combat with foam weapons where you swing at each other. But then there's a whole bunch of rules, like how much armor you have in any spot based on your level, and then how you cast spells. You have to do it in a very specific way, and so it seemed like kind of live action Dungeons and Dragons, so very combat focused, but I didn't like it because what they count as a hit would never actually hurt anyone, even if you were, there's a difference. You don't have to go hard, but it became really weird tag with rules almost. At least my impression of it was, but this is also a couple kids playing in someone's backyard with really crappy boffer weapons that we built ourselves.
Got it. I mean, regardless, that still sounds like fun. So you mentioned earlier, so Dragon Thrones would have been your first blockbuster event, correct?
Yes. And it was our first real LARP event for my wife and I. And my wife and I ended up running our house. She ended up as the high ruler because we didn't want to have two people leading, and me as her general. So for our first LARP, we ended up in charge of a whole group, just winging it.
So is there anything that you wish you would have known or been better prepared for Dragon Thrones being your first event?
LARPs in general, no. I think we had an okay handle on that. We had experience running businesses before and leading teams, so all of that came in handy. I think the hard part for us was we didn't have a great sense of the larger plot or meta plot or background from previous events. Even though we had the materials they gave us, we could have used more. And the character I had in particular that I'm still playing is particularly odd, and so there's just been a lot of lore and other things that I've had to wing. And I'm fine with improv, but I also found it hard when I didn't want to step on a game master's toes or the creator's toes, putting lore in about myself that wasn't accurate. And so managing that, I think, that's been the continuing difficulty that I'm still learning about, is that since it's a less developed world, there's a lot less for me to hang my hat on than, say, Vampire or something where I've read half the lore of the world and could make anything up on the spot and know it'd be consistent.
So with that being said, what kind of roles do you prefer to play in LARP?
Good question. So I like trying different things. So I avoid playing a medic or a doctor of any form since I am one in real life, and it's a little too much like going to work. Unless I was playing like some type of mad scientist, I could see myself doing that. I've tended to, at this point, play more of a warrior or a general just because I have natural inclinations towards that, and it's kind of easier. In the hearts of hearts, I'd love to try to play a bard, but I can't sing worth anything, so that would be kind of disastrous. So I could play like a terrible bard. But I've also been interested in maybe being a rogue of some form or some type of sneaky character. But at this point, it's all been something in the military, just based on my martial arts background. Makes it kind of easy. And the fact that most of the garb I've had from Ren fairs is all, high quality real armor and other stuff. And so it's just been more affordable to add on to that for costumes versus trying to go a completely different route where I'd have to buy everything new again. And so it makes it much more affordable to be able to, I'll just buy a piece here or there, and now I have 3 outfits for 4 days or whatever, and I'm good to go. And so I've been kind of shoehorned into that just based on what I already owned.
I definitely agree. It's more cost effective actually too. So which would you say was your most recent LARP that you've attended?
So the most recent one I did was the Dragon Thrones last July, and I'm going to do Heroes in a week, which is exciting.
Right.
So we're looking for that. And then my wife and I are trying to find a way to get to 1 or 2 more a year. The problem for us is that it's the time. Like, we have to get babysitters and people to watch our children. So, like, Outworld Hope or something, that one that's on the battleship that our mutual friend Terry told me about.
Yeah.
Outworld Hope. That looks awesome, but there's no way we can afford to swing, not the money, but the time to go in November to Michigan with children in school right before Thanksgiving. It's just it's a non-starter for us.
Gotcha. It definitely sounds like it's going to be a fun time, though.
Yeah, no, it looks awesome. It's something I'd love to do. It's just a timing for us. So I'm starting it now with the LARPed.com community, trying to find more local, smaller events in like the Philadelphia, New Jersey areas, which is where we're at, to like be able to, maybe we could just drive up on a Saturday morning and do something for 5 or 6 hours and come back and do that once every few months and find some smaller events too. So that's a work in progress. I've also talked to one of the vampire groups that was on there, but they don't have anything in the area, so that I have to run it. And that sounds like a little more work than I have time for right now to set up a troop. So we're very like baby in the LARP stage. We do really big LARPs once or twice a year with Dragon Thrones and are trying to expand. But for us, it's been the time more than the money. And so we're like going really big in small amounts and then trying to find other options that let us do it more often. It's the same problem we have with pen and paper gaming. We can never do that because we can't get a group together that's any reliable schedule once you have children.
So would you say, has LARP positively affected your life?
Yeah, for both myself and my wife, but I can speak more for me. I think it lets us try different roles and say try leadership skills out or different ways of interacting with people without like a consequence, say at your job. So, you can try a different personality on or a different persona or a different approach to solving problems than you maybe usually do in your day-to-day life. And if it works and it's successful, then you can incorporate that into your day-to-day life. And if it doesn't, then maybe all that happened was your character died or made some characters angry. But since you have the extra layer of LARPing in there, everyone, it is not real by definition. And so you can have that freedom to experiment in a way you can't in real life without consequences. So that's what I like the most about it, is it lets us do that type of thing.
So from your first LARP experience, I would say, I know you mentioned you did Amp-Guard a while back, and now through Dragon Thrones, how has your view of LARP changed over time?
So I didn't realize that there were non-offer heavy LARPs that were more character focused outside of vampires. So it really let me realize that there's a whole other world that's either been around that I haven't noticed or starting to spring up. So I think that's really awesome and a big plus that's new. The other thing that's kind of changed is I realized that not all offer type LARPs have to be like Amp-Guard, and there can be a blend. So like Dragon Threads had a mini component that was really fun to do, but that you could also come up with other systems that have some level of, live action combat that aren't that feel, at least to me, less odd. And so I'm trying to explore that as well and see where kind of that line is for the different types of things, and go from there. But at this point, it's a little nascent. But hopefully, as my kids get older, then they can join in too, and then we can do more things together. Since we're not having to get a babysitter for 2 days for them, they can come with. So that's the next level goal, and I've learned that some of them are more open to that as well.
So if you could choose the next greatest up-and-coming LARP idea, what would it be and why?
Next greatest up. So what would I do for like a LARP setting, or for like a mechanic within a LARP?
So yeah, basically, if you could come up with your own LARP, or if you could attend a LARP that, would be preferable to you, what would it be and why? Yeah.
All right. So in 10 years from now, I'd love to see augmented reality, like with the new version of Google Glasses or whatever we all have then, thrown into LARPs. And I think that would allow like next level special effects, like just to be built into the game. You could see people cast spells. But for what I could actually envision the next year or two, I think, since I'm a huge fan of The Witcher, it'd be really fun to do something within a world similar to that, where you are monster hunters or wizards dealing with politics and other groups and or monsters. And you could either have player characters be monsters or have NPCs do it and have a really cool LARP that way. And then mechanically, for me, I'm kind of an odd bird, but I would love to see a LARP that almost took a cue from historical European combat rules and combined that with some amount of spell casting and like camping in the woods, and had a pretty immersive experience, but that also played, heavy on the realism, not in terms of like, there'll be magic and stuff that you need to have rules for, but in terms of the actual combat, have some level of consensual combat similar to what you get in a martial arts class that could be fun for people. I think that'd be a really interesting way to do it. So somehow like combining SCA type of thing, but with less contact so that you can enjoy it for longer, plus LARP, plus like non-combat LARP in kind of an interesting way. I think that'd be really neat to do, but probably also very niche, because I don't think you're going to get a lot of people who want to do that.
So definitely a lot of good ideas in combination there. I do have to say that it would be really, really cool to see all those put together, but I do agree. I don't know if everybody would be willing to do that, but it'd definitely be a good idea to try it, for sure.
Yeah, you'd have to find like a crowd of LARPers who are willing to like punch each other a little bit, so to speak. Not actually, but like have a little bit of contact in combat in like some type of consensual way, and like frame that out ahead of time, and then find that core, and then build a world where you can do that and go from there. But I think the Venn diagram of people who are into LARP and want to do that type of combat is not high, and the big hurdle would be finding all of those people. But that would be cool. And then the other one would be like, once we have augmented reality, we could cast spells at each other and like have some type of wizard war type of thing. That'd be another very fun LARP. And I could see that in like 5 to 10 years pretty easily, where everyone's wearing glasses, where there's an interface over what we actually see.
Hopefully sooner.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping like 5 years in terms of it existing and then being affordable enough for people to have.
Well, Jason, listen, I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with me today.
Absolutely.
I do look forward to seeing you at Dragon Thrones next week.
Yeah.
And guys, if you haven't already done so, check us out on LARP.com.